The following podcast is a mass media production.
Hi, I'm Josh Galindo.
And I'm Krystal Galindo. Welcome to the Going Galindo Rugrats and Renovations podcast.
A lifestyle podcast where we will offer our experience and expertise in building real, lasting wealth through renovating and flipping homes.
And the chaos that comes with balancing a family of 6, leaving nothing unsaid.
Follow our wild ride we call life and apply our lessons to your own journey. Good morning, honey.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm good today.
Good.
Yeah.
So we got a big episode.
Yeah. It's just a little update.
Update.
Yeah.
I guess we have to talk candidly about it again.
I know. I feel like I left people hanging and I didn't realize it. I think there's just so much information that it's hard to
Yeah.
broadcast it all.
I know. I'm wondering, do you like play by play this thing?
Well, I
Do
think
you summarize? I mean, we got to fill an hour. We'll just go. Hey, I want to take a moment to tell you about Battleborn Injury Lawyers. They handle personal injury, which covers everything from auto accidents to wrongful death. You never know when something bad will happen to you or your family. Make sure you have a resource to contact right away if you should ever need it. Put Matt's number in your phone now. He will not let you down. It's 702-570-9000. Again, guys, it's 702-570-9000.
So, I guess I'll just start kind of from the beginning. So, June of 2020, so mid-quarantine,
Yeah.
I felt like a little tiny pebble, I guess, in my right breast. And it wasn't always there. It moved around. So it's like each time I'd have to kind of find it. So I was like, I should go get it looked at. So I went to my OB. My OB said, get a mammogram and ultrasound. So I went to a place here and they did the ultrasound, the mammogram on it. And then 2 weeks later, they told me it was a fibroid, which is like a fatty tissue cyst thing that's nothing. And they said, we'll just monitor it every 6 months. I'm like, okay. Then 4 months later, I realized it was I feel like it was double in size. Would you agree?
I never felt it initially,
No.
but I would agree that
It was
it
was
grew
bigger
substantially.
and you could see it. It wasn't
Sure.
just floating around anymore. I didn't have to find it. It was stuck there.
Yeah.
So I went back and they were like, okay, sometimes these things, get bigger because of your hormones and, with your cycles and all of that. So they sent me for a follow-up, which, I'm a little mad at myself because that was November and I didn't go until January. But so I went for my follow-up mammogram and ultrasound. And when I went to the place, they told me I only need an ultrasound. I don't need a mammogram. And I fought them for doing both because I'm like, I'm here. We need to do everything that my doctor said we should do. I'm not going to just skip out and then I have to come back or whatever it was. So I did the mammogram again and I did the ultrasound, which I don't know why everyone says a mammogram hurts so much. For me, it didn't bother me at all. So if anybody tells you a mammogram's that terrible, just take it with a grain of salt. I was so nervous. I'm like, oh, that was nothing,
It's good
I've had
to know.
kids.
And
so.
good to know. Sure. Yeah. I mean, that'll certainly prepare you.
Anyway, so I went for my follow-up, mammogram, ultrasound, and I literally wasn't even to my car by the time my doctor's office called me and told me that I had to have it biopsied from leaving the mammogram. I hadn't even gotten in my car yet. So I obviously panicked. I kind of don't remember. I blacked out a little bit. So they called me and they said, okay, these are the papers that you need to get. And it takes 3 weeks to get in for a biopsy. So you need to get all these paperwork as fast as you can so that we can make your appointment because we can't make your appointment without all these papers. And I'm like, 3 weeks? You just told me within 4 minutes that I need to have a biopsy. I'm not going to wait 3 weeks to have it, you know? So I reached out. Normally I don't like ask anybody for everything or anything. I'm not a like favor person. I'm happy to do favors, but I'm not about asking favors. But this time I did. And so I called my neighbor who has a friend that owns another radiology place. And they said, get all those papers and we'll get you tomorrow morning.
There you go.
And I was like, so I spent my whole day getting everything that I needed, calling insurance, getting it approved, begging people to rush everything. And so then I had my biopsy. And even when I went, they were like, this looks like what we've seen before. It's the fibroid. They said it looks like there's 2 lumps now, but it was really just the one lump, and my implant was pressing against it to make it look like 2, like a snowman. But it was really just pressed against it to make it look like 2, which, they told me that, and I was going into the weekend, so I was kind of happy they told me that just so I could relax a little bit over the weekend. And they said, we'll call you by the end of day Tuesday with your results, whatever. Okay, great. So I go through the weekend, and literally 9 a.m. on the dot Monday morning, they're calling me, and I just knew that it wasn't good because, no news is good news. So news early is bad news.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's when they told me it was invasive ductal carcinoma, and then we, hit the ground running from there, I guess. That's like the backstory that I didn't really share before.
Well, thank you for sharing that, obviously. I think everybody listening knows that this takes extreme courage and bravery to step up and communicate your experience to the audience. I think the intent is, amongst many reasons, but one of those reasons is to educate and awareness. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You initially went in there and asked for more tests, and they said no, right? Mm-hmm. And you insisted.
Yeah.
So I think this whole journey has been a reflection of the need for tenacity with health. We've been told many times that we don't need that test. We don't need this test. And we just kept pushing and saying it. So here's what I want to just communicate to everybody is that our insurance is paying for it. Mm-hmm. We pay our insurance to pay for it. We can demand these tests. And I think what you did is a perfect example of making that demand and then having it be provided. So it's easy to look at the doctor and think that they know everything and that it's okay if they say that you don't need that test and you move on. I would not encourage that way of thinking. I would encourage you to demand whatever you want and expect it and get it and not stop until you get it.
Yeah.
Something else that I think is important to talk about is self-exams. Because that's ultimately how you found it.
I'll be honest, I wasn't very diligent about self-exams, and I got like a new bralette, and I was just pulling it down, and I was like, what was that? So yeah, self-exams are so important, because honestly, I never really did it, but if I did, I would have been able to find that one sooner.
Yeah.
I really would have.
Yeah.
I don't know what that would have changed, but I would have been able to find it sooner. So self-exams are so important. And
well, I don't want to say that. Let me stop. It would have changed something. It would have been caught sooner. If it was caught sooner, it may have stayed inside the duct.
Yeah.
If it would have stayed inside the duct, it would not have gone to the lymph node.
And I wouldn't have to have chemo.
And you wouldn't have to have chemo. So I think what we say is really important to be clear about it, because people will take our advice because we're going through it. So yeah, early detection is
so important.
So important.
Yeah.
And so important is almost an understatement, because where we caught it was still considered early. There's a point where it's not early.
Yep, I agree with you. So that was the other thing they told me, so you have to be monitoring it, and we'll watch it every 6 months. They said check it after every cycle. So that's the other thing, is that you don't want to just do an exam like monthly, like after your cycle, so everything feels the same, because with your cycle, a lot of things can change. So this could have been nothing and still getting bigger just because of my cycle. But regardless, I think that the self-exam is so important, because if there's anything, it has to be looked at,
I would almost say that if you have a lump and you go in, I would just demand a biopsy.
If you can,
immediately.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even allow there to be a if you can. I would just demand it and not stop until you get it. the fact that they sent you back without biopsying a lump in your breast is like shocking to me.
Well, and the other thing is that
biopsy means that they actually put a needle in, suck out a piece of the tissue, and then examine the tissue under a microscope. It's not just a feel or a visual.
Right.
It's actually examined to determine what it is.
Mm-hmm. It's like a surgical procedure. I did get a second opinion also on my first images. And I still talk to this person, and she's like still is kind of in disbelief, and she's looked at it even like 2 weeks ago because she just can't believe that it was something when it literally looked like it was nothing. And just to touch on that too, because I'm young, and it's not expected, because I'm young. So that's why I think it was like, oh, it's nothing because you're young. It was so impactful for the doctor that did my biopsy that him and a couple of the other doctors at that radiology place made their wives go in and get checked after getting my results, seeing that it was something when it looked like it was nothing.
I think for the people that maybe just be tuning in, obviously they're probably going to go back and listen to the first one. But I think to describe a little bit of Krystal is tell us your age, how many times you've been pregnant, how many kids you've had, and just kind of give them update on who you are as a person.
I am 34 and I have 4 kids, 4 C-sections, 4 C-sections, and
healthy. Active.
I'm healthy, active. I'm not overweight.
Right.
I'm not.
So that's the point I want to.
Yeah.
That's the description I want to point out. Is this is a perfectly healthy young lady, and it's easy to think you're bulletproof when you're young. So it's just something to just take into consideration and be conscious of.
That you're not invincible.
It can happen to anybody, and really, we've even heard the doctor say that they've seen as young as 28 years old.
Yeah.
That was the youngest I think I'd seen or heard.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So where are we at today? Is that where from when we found out, you found out, and then I found out, we found out.
Yeah.
How many weeks out are we?
Oh, well, that's like 2 months.
2 months.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're 2 months out.
2 months out.
And then we'll just pick up from where you left off.
Yeah, and I there's just been a couple things that I've been doing to ensure that I make this as painless as possible, I guess, on my end. So I'm trying to be as healthy as possible. I haven't had any alcohol.
So from when we found out, we immediately made some lifestyle changes. Not that I think that they're going to be permanent. I don't want them to be permanent. I want to continue to do what we want to do. But for the moment, and preparing you to be the tip-top shape you could possibly be in.
To be able to
we made the
let
following
my body
changes.
repair. Yeah. No alcohol, and I did switch to no meat. I've had a little bit of fish, but mostly no meat, no alcohol. And then, on weeks that like this week, I know that I'm having treatment tomorrow.
What was the major third thing? Sugar.
Oh, yeah, sugar.
Sugar is, let me tell you how dangerous I believe sugar is and how scary it is when they do a PET scan, PET scan.
PET scan.
When they do the PET scan, they actually inject Krystal with sugar, and all of the little cancer mites come out of their hiding places and start eating the sugar. And then they scan her body at that moment, and then they can identify where the cancer is in her body. So you tell me if sugar is not dangerous, if that's how they identify whether or not cancer is in the body and where it's at in the body. So no alcohol, no sugar, and no meat. And the meat thing was more, I think, focused around, we just didn't want those. There's actually nothing wrong with eating grass-fed organic meat, but it's very difficult to find that at just any general restaurant.
Yeah.
So for us, at least for me, my encouragement of no meat was based on getting all of those antibiotics and hormones and all the shit they put in the meat to preserve it out of your system.
Yeah, and none of those things necessarily cause cancer. They just feed it. So
true. Well said.
And
I mean, I don't know.
So I'm shy not to feed it.
Yeah, no, right. And then we knew that it was estrogen driven. So with the resources that we had done research and understood that CBD oil actually suppresses, thank you, estrogen. So with the little bits of things that we had control over, those were the actions that we immediately took. So keep going, honey.
So, yeah, I'm 34. I am estrogen positive, progesterone positive, and HER2 negative. For anyone that's going through it, they'll know what that means. If you're not going through it, you don't need to know or want to know. No. So you don't want to learn what that means.
Right.
Anyway, so I had my first round of chemo 3 weeks ago, and I am cold capping, which is to preserve my hair. So it works for some, doesn't work for some. So we're just kind of praying and hoping that it works and doing it right. A lot of people can save 70 to 90% of your hair. You'll still have some hair loss, but not as much. So just a quick description of the cold caps. You're the best at it, so because you learned all about it.
I will elaborate on the cold caps and explain what that process looks like. I think some other things that in the event, because I think really what's probably going to happen is someone that is perfectly healthy and doesn't have any issues may say, oh my gosh, my friend has this. Hey friend, you've got to listen to this podcast because I think it could be helpful. And then unfortunately, if someone that we do know ended up having it and they are listening, this would be informative for them. So I think there was some other, I think it's worth taking a moment to justify these following actions. Imagine having no eyebrows, no eyelashes, and no hair on your head, and you're not a man. I mean, I can get away with that. Haha. Light moment. It's, society, you don't feel like you're a part of society or that you're an outlier in society when you don't have those things as a female. So there was some preventative things that we took that I would encourage, that I remember you getting that advice. Yes. Immediately go get your
eyebrows microbladed.
Exactly, your eyebrows microbladed. We looked into eyelashes that I didn't even know this crazy ass shit's out there. You can paint on a magnet.
It's magnetic eyelashes, okay. Yeah.
Well, to me, it seemed way crazier than that. But yeah, so those are the following steps. So magnetic eyelashes, microblading eyebrows, and then the cold capping. And hopefully that will preserve the hair that women want.
Yes.
The upside is that the other hair goes away, and that's all a plus. But so what is cold capping? Cold capping, I'll kind of give my opinion on it first. Unfortunately, it's not something that is covered under insurance. It is in other countries, and it's kind of a shame that it's not here, as the insurance companies don't believe that a woman losing their hair is a part of the process. I think they're absolutely ridiculous for making that claim.
Yeah.
I think it's 100% a part of the process, and would make it a lot more comforting if there was a solution that they were willing to embrace and pay for to offset that part of the experience. So having said that, cold capping is very common in other countries, Europe. I'll just summarize it with Europe, and Germany and Japan and all these other ones. But cold capping is very common in other countries. And what it is, for example, let's just use a bruise or a swollen ankle. What do they always tell you to put on it? They tell you to put ice on it because the ice reduces swelling. The ice pushes the blood away from the spot that's swollen. And so it's the same logic with cold capping. And there are these 4 ice packs is a great way to describe them, obviously cut into a way that they could be shaped around the scalp. They go on top of Krystal's head. But first, so I'll just give you, I guess now that I've explained what they are, actually I'll keep going. When you put them on the head, on the scalp, it freezes the scalp.
And restricts blood flow.
So think, as she's getting the chemo pumped through her body, that chemo is going down to her toes, to her ankles, to her shins, to her knees, to her thighs, all over her body, to her fingertips, to her shoulders. Goes. Anywhere there's blood that's where that chemo is going, because it's trying to kill any of the cancer cells that it can't, that the eye can't detect. So obviously there's blood circulating through your scalp. So by putting the cold caps on, it pushes all of that blood away from the scalp. So when you are getting your chemo treatment, the blood stays away from the scalp. Well, the blood is now contaminated with the chemotherapy, so therefore, if it stays away, it won't kill those cells. Because what chemo is, in a nutshell, is that it kills rapidly reproducing cells. Rapidly reproducing cells are hair, nails, skin. Your esophagus and your throat is a good one.
Yeah.
It kills all rapidly reproducing cells, and unfortunately, cancer is one of those. But it can't determine which one is which. It goes after all of it. So anyway, so cold capping restricts the blood flow to your scalp. Now, how does that work? So we've done it once. There's a big, you have to wake up in the morning early. You go to this place that donates dry ice to the cause, and you get about 60 pounds of dry ice. This is my job.
Yep,
I
that's
don't
your
want
job.
people to think Krystal's like helping me get dry ice.
No, Josh does that for me.
So I wake up, I go down to this place between 6 and 6:30, get 60 pounds of dry ice. I put it inside a big igloo cooler, and inside the cooler is 4 cold caps that go on her head, plus 4 straps that go around her hairline. And about an hour and a half before we start the cold capping process.
Before my appointment.
Before it starts. And what that does is it gets the blood away right out the gate. Now these caps, this is how strong Krystal is. And I couldn't even imagine this for a moment, especially not having any hair. Is these dry ice naturally sits at negative 109 degrees. So you put these cold caps in there and you pack dry ice
layered
all around it. So they're layered. So it's like dry ice, cold cap, all the way to until it's filled. So obviously the coldest cap is at the bottom. So that cap comes out and it's put onto Krystal's head, starts freezing her scalp. You got to be very conscious of frostbite.
Yeah.
So we cover all of her exposed skin, and we have to constantly, before putting on the cold cap, take its temperature of the cold cap. So we have a temperature gun that we put on the cold cap. We put these things on at minus 40 to minus 20 degrees on her head. Think about that just for a second. That's cold.
Yeah.
Minus 40 to minus 20 is the range that I believe it's time to put that one on. So we put that on. Now, every 20 minutes, they have to be swapped. Because if even for a moment the scalp gets warm, blood is allowed to go back up there. The process is such a serious process and needs to be taken so seriously. And I emphasize these things in the event somebody is cold capping, that if there is one moment where you leave it on for 25 minutes and that cold cap, because her body's obviously still hot, so it's cooling down that cold cap that was just put on her head. If that cold cap gets too warm or her scalp gets warm enough to allow blood to go back into it, then the chemo can now go up there.
And it takes one time.
It takes one time. That's it. And the hair's fried. So that's how serious this is. So having said that, we start an hour and a half early, and then every 20 minutes from the second we start, we are pulling out all the dry ice, all the other 3 cold caps, accessing the coldest cold cap, removing the old cold cap, putting on the new cold cap, putting them all back in there, and then that process repeats every 20 minutes for 10 hours.
Yeah.
10
hours. Yeah. And I think it's important to note that you have to literally do it every 20 minutes. Like, my appointment is 25 minutes away. That means every time we're going to have to pull over on the way there and the way back to switch out the cap on the side of the road.
That's right. And her sister Brandy is a big help in this whole process. We're the cold cap team.
Yeah, you guys are my cold capping team.
So obviously it sounds pretty grueling from our perspective, but it is. But think about this for just a moment. It's almost like wearing a football helmet. Oh. Actually, probably even heavier than a football helmet. It's about 8 pounds per cold cap for 10 hours. And then when we Velcro it on and off, and the pressure that she has to, to keep her head up, and for 10 hours, it's just crazy. It's wild to even think about. So obviously, it makes your neck sore.
Is it bad that I'm dreading that tomorrow more than I am the chemo?
No. I think that's a thing I think that's better to dread that thing.
I'm dreading the needle prick and the cold cap.
Yeah. So that is our adventure, and I think there's a little bit of something to that as far as distraction. There's one thing to sit in. I'll let you elaborate. Go ahead. No,
there is. It kind of, because you think, like, I was thinking to myself, like, okay, I gotta get a book and I gotta pick up a new show and there's literally no time for that. And the other thing to know is that right now, because of COVID, I would typically have to go to chemo alone. And I would have to sit there for 3 hours alone. And because I'm cold capping, you can't, when you're hooked up, you can't do it yourself. So they allowed me to have you there. And then we also were able to get Brandy in there. So that you guys were both able to do it. And then it gives you a 20-minute break, I guess, instead of a 10-minute break if you guys are switching off.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's so much going on, you can't even really do anything else, honestly.
Yeah. So why don't you, okay, so those are some of the things that we're doing to make Krystal's, to take this experience and just make it livable with. Before that first round of chemo, Krystal was drinking 3.5 bottles, big bottles of water, so tons and tons of water. The way chemo, actually, I want to elaborate on this.
Yeah.
The way that I understood and read about chemo is I believed, before I understood it more, that chemo is, it sits in your body and kills the cells for however long you're on the treatment. But what I learned is that chemo is only actually in the body for about 24 hours. So a good example is you're boozing incredibly hard one night, right? And then the next 3 days, it's all about trying to get that out and get your body back in alignment.
To flush your body out.
it out.
Yeah.
So the biggest part of this thing is hydration. Because it's going to go in and it's going to do its thing and it's going to wreak havoc. And then it's all about getting it back out of the body. And the reason that they actually wait the 3 weeks in between, or 21 days between each session, is it's such an atom bomb dropped on the body that it just crushes the white blood cells. So the body actually needs that 3 weeks to rebuild the blood cells. So it's not that the chemo's still in there wreaking havoc. It goes in, it drops the bomb, and then the body needs 3 weeks to recover. So each time between each session, Krystal actually has to go in and get blood work to ensure that her white blood cell count is back up in a position to take on that next round of chemo.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's so important to say these things, and why it's so important to maintain a very healthy lifestyle during this process. Because it should be, and the cat's not out of the bag yet, but it should be a very painful experience for 5 days after the treatment. And by the grace of God and Krystal's proactive behavior, Krystal did not have to go through that.
Yeah, this first round.
And that's why I say we don't know what the second round's got in store for us. But if we can keep this up, this is, it'll make it a much better experience.
Yeah, because I just don't want to be, I can handle tired. I just don't want to be sick.
Yeah.
All right, it's time to talk real quick about our podcast sponsor, Southwestern Custom Construction. Josh and I have been in the real estate industry for a while now, and trust me, we know how hard it is to find a good contractor. You need someone who's going to show up on time and get you a bid in a reasonable time frame. We've been working with Nick Marietta for a while now, and he comes highly recommended. If you need a contractor, get in touch with Nick at Southwestern Custom Construction. His number is 480-235-8148.
So how did you feel after the first round?
Honestly, every day I was waking up, waiting to see if I was going to get, hit by a bus. I'm, waking up, how do I feel today? Okay, I feel normal. And
we created a scale because I'd go, how do you feel? And she'd give me a general answer.
Good.
Yeah, good. Okay, fine, great, okay. And I'm like, well, what is that? I don't know what that means. So the simple answer was normal. And if it was outside of normal, then I wanted to know about it. So I'd say, how do you feel? As long as I got a normal back, then I felt good about it.
And to be fair, I don't feel good.
Yeah, you're tough.
No, that hurt. I'd be like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah. So play-by-play, real life, Krystal was back at work the next day.
Yes.
Yeah, and I almost fired her, but I was like, go home. What are you doing?
So, but I took it easy.
Yeah, she did.
Which is not in my DNA to do that. So I was just more careful. But yeah, so I felt good. Thank God I felt good. And the kids weren't home, so they didn't see anything. And
yeah, we're just leaning on the people around us to kind of
I have a lot of support. One of my neighbors made dinner for us for 4 nights, a homemade meal.
Incredible meal.
Yeah. And all
she crushed it.
Yeah,
She's
no
listening.
meat.
Oh,
I know.
It was awesome.
It was so good. It was so good. Josh is going to fire me as a chef. I think, and then now we're 3 weeks, and I had my blood work done yesterday. I have my follow-up appointment today, and then I have chemo tomorrow.
That's right. So let's elaborate a little bit on some of our, because this was very content heavy, play by play. If we slow down in each, was there a moment? Did we have a tough time? How are we overcoming emotion? How are we maintaining normalcy? How are we living our lives? What are we doing different, or what are we not doing different?
I think that I'm trying to stay busy. That's my biggest thing. I need to stay distracted, which is helpful that the kids don't know, and that I am with them all the time. So it does keep me distracted so that I can't really think about it too much. I mean, the last couple of days have been kind of hard because I know it's coming, so it's like the build up. But I've been trying to keep a semi-normal life, and I think that it helped, like, when you started, like you hung out with your friends on Friday, and I was like, oh, thank God, because just my life needs to be, like, out of place. As long as everyone around me has their normal life, it's a little bit easier. But when I'm watching, like, my sister not do anything and you not do anything, I'm like, it's just like, it feels very overwhelming instead of it just being me. Like, just like when I'm pregnant, it's like, just my life is a little bit different for the next time being,
Message received. I think that was a side
No, I think I'm
communication.
serious.
No, I think that was a valid
It
point.
made it lighter. It
Yeah.
didn't make it so heavy and so depressing,
Sure.
And I haven't cried in like 3 weeks, so that's good too.
Yeah, no, it's been we just jumped back into the zone. What I would say that we're doing, and I kind of I run my businesses this way, and I run my life as best as I can this way, is what this has really taught me is staying in the moment and how dangerous the imagination is. And everybody always says live in the moment, but if you want something that'll really force you to do that, this is it. Is just staying in the moment and acknowledging the reality of now. At this moment, my wife is looking back at me. She's perfect. She's whole. She's complete. She's healthy. So own and live that experience instead of building this imaginary scenario 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the road and then feeling it right now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? That's actually the definition, in my opinion, of living in the now. So I've had to really force myself to do that. I'm just loving you in the moment, in the way that you are, and trying to live my life that way. So it's just doing what we do, buying homes, fixing them up and reselling them, going home and being mom and dad. You're taking the kids to dance. You're taking the kids to gymnastics. Soccer, shit. Gymnastics, dance, soccer, bookkeeping.
Yeah.
You're being good to me. So just maintaining life.
I think,
and socializing. I think that's important, and I think it's. We said some of this stuff in the beginning, but I think it's important to say it again, and to empower those that may ever be in a situation like this to communicate to your surroundings that staying away or hiding or giving us time or space is like 100% the opposite of what should be happening.
Yeah.
What I can assure anybody that thinks that way, if a person wants space, they're going to communicate that they just need space. If they want love and affection, they're not going to communicate that they want love and affection. So if anything, overload them with love and affection and maintain normalcy, maintain the normalcy of that relationship. And then if they ever need a break, they'll tell you, not today, brother, I'm just hanging out at the house. I'm just going to relax.
Yeah.
But no one's going to call and go, hey, I'm needing love and affection and attention. Can you come hang out?
Yeah, no.
So be that proactive person in that person's life. And this is a repeat of what we would ask of our friends is maintain normalcy. Please continue to invite us out. Please let's go to dinner together. Please continue to send funny text messages. You don't have to ask how we're doing every single time. If anything, we'll give you an update. You don't have to feel like, you don't have to feel anything. I was actually making a joke with a guy in the gym. The guy's the sweetest dude ever. If he's listening, he'll probably know who he is. But I shared this news with the two gentlemen in the gym that I see often in the locker room. Every morning, he goes, how's your wife?
You're like,
and I'm like,
I wanted to forget about it today.
I'm like, she's excellent, brother. It's all good. And you know what? I get that that's, maybe socially appropriate, but I just want to, you're good, man.
Yeah.
If there's
I think
news,
it's
I'll
hard because
update you.
there's no like book on how to react or what to say or, because there really isn't the right thing to say. And so this isn't for like my friends checking on me, but this is for like anyone who's going through it. Like no one knows what to say. So if you're going through it and someone says, it's okay if you lose your hair. It usually grows back thicker. It's like you want to say, you're not about to go bald. Like, how, but they're like, it's coming from a good place. It's not coming from like, they're just trying to make you feel better. So that's been my biggest thing is like everything that someone says, I can't take it to like the negative space. I need to switch my mind to take it to like what their good intentions are.
Yeah.
Like every morning or every time I see someone new, they're like, oh my God, you look great. It's like, you expected me to look like shit. Like, you know what that makes me feel like? But that's not like what the point that they're trying to get across. Or when they say, oh my God, you're so strong. It's because it's like, oh, it's because they know I'm weak right now that they're saying that. And, so that's been my biggest thing because for a while it like kind of made me like, it rubbed me not wrong, but I was just like, man, everyone expects me to feel like shit, look like shit, not be able to function.
Let me ask you this. Format your thought, because what you're describing is the scenario.
Yeah.
That's been received.
Right. I don't know what else they could say.
No. Okay. But try to, because really what's happening is you can't go and control what everybody says.
No.
You can't hand them a rule book when you see them. So exactly. So what are you doing in your mind to be able to receive these comments and process them and come from a place of understanding? Well, because I know we've had this conversation, but I want you to go into it. What is Krystal doing in her world that she's never had to do in the way that she thinks about, what people say? What are you doing to keep sanity?
Well, what it started with...
And not get worked up or frustrated or sad or any of those feelings that could come with those comments.
Well, I had to feel it first. And then what I did, which is what I do with everything, like, in our relationship too, I'm like, they could have said it better. Like, there's a different way to say it. You could have said it better. What would I have said? And I'm like, probably would have said all those same things, not meaning anything bad.
Exactly.
So I just had to like take myself back to like every time I hear it, I'm like, what would I have said? I probably would have said that. This is short term. It's okay. When really I want to be like, I know it's short term. I just want to complain, So I just had to like take it back to what I would say. And that's what I would say. And what would my intentions be? Because I honestly think I'm a good person. My intentions would be to make them feel better, to make them feel like it's not such an overwhelming thing, So that's kind of what helped me a lot. I needed to like give myself a reality check. And that was me kind of not being a victim, but just like feeling bad for myself. And it's like, if I'm going to feel bad for myself, I'm feeling like everyone else is like feeling bad for me. And then I'm just going to feel down. And I don't want that.
So you're choosing to feel empowered.
And to not feel bad for myself.
And then everybody will treat you that way.
Yes.
So what I've kind of summarized, perfectly beautifully said, because I've had the same experience. Mm-hmm. I don't even know if I told you, but when I went to get my blood work done, the doctor said some fucking wild shit that I almost took her her clipboard and slapped her with it. I couldn't even believe she said it. I won't even go into what she said. No, it was, anyway. So not about me, because I was updating her about us.
Okay.
And what she responded with was like, geez, okay, I get you're a doctor, but my God. Anyway, nobody knows what to say. Mm-hmm. And then when they do say something, it's usually it's stupid.
It's not received right way.
They don't know what to say. And then whatever they do say is not very good. So because there's no rule book and there's no rule or no one trains you on how to say what the right thing is to say, and they could be saying the right thing and you could be, and you or I could be in a different state of mind and we would receive it wrong.
Yeah.
So I had to tell myself I need to start processing what they're saying differently. I had to go and start rewiring me, so I didn't react to what they were saying, and I just kept saying to myself, "There's no right thing to say, and whenever they do say it, it's not going to be it's going to sound terrible."
Yeah.
But I know at the end of the day that everybody has pure intent around the topic. And so it kind of took all of my defenses away and took away, it turned it from aggravation or frustration that somebody would say that, the nerve, to just compassion and understanding. Mm-hmm. And it puts me at ease. My energy around that person is obviously at ease. And then hopefully it made that experience for me a little easier.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because that's the other thing. I'm like, what would I want to hear? I'm like,
yeah, who knows? Exactly.
I don't know what I
There's
want
not even a right thing to me. There's no rule book on our side.
I can't even tell you what I want you to say.
Yeah. So I thought that was something important to talk about, because that's kind of an inside scoop to how we're thinking and what we're doing to reprogram ourselves to be able to live through this. All right, guys, let me make sure I give myself a really quick plug here. I just want to take a moment and make sure I'm crystal clear on what Galindo Group Real Estate offers to the Las Vegas public. We have a company called Galindo Buys Houses that buys homes as is, all cash, and can close in as little as 7 days with no appraisals, no commissions, and we pay all of the fees associated with the closing. So the number we give you is the number you should walk away with from the closing table. You pick your close date, and if you need to, you can stay up to 3 weeks after closing, giving you a home and the much-needed cash to make future decisions. Galindo Buys House is a locally owned company that takes the profits generated here in town and reinvests them locally. We're not that big hedge fund that takes the profits generated here and sends them off to New York and other big cities. I employ people here locally and invest here locally. If you or anyone you know is behind on payments, repairs, or inherited a tenant disaster, don't hesitate to give me a call. We will get you an offer in 5 minutes or less and close in 7 days or less. So please take this number down. It's easy, 820-CASH. Again, it's 702-820-CASH. Talk to you soon. So what's to come? So Krystal has...
My second round tomorrow.
So there's a total of 16. Mm-hmm. What we've chosen to do, because we want to...
do it most effectively.
Well, we just want to be mentally right through this process.
Yeah.
We've chosen to get through the first 8.
Oh.
And then when we're done with the first 8, we know we've got another 8. But instead of telling ourselves we have 16 rounds of this thing, we're going to say we have 8 rounds of this thing. So, but that's just another trick that we're doing. So if you want to break it into threes, break it into threes. If you want to take on the whole thing, but just something, a little nugget that maybe would help somebody that's in this situation. But globally speaking, we have 16 treatments. We've already done 1. The first 8 treatments are over 3 weeks or over 3 months.
The first 4 treatments.
Excuse me. Thank you. Do you want to elaborate on this?
I mean, you can go.
Okay. So for the first 3 months of the 6-month experience, Krystal will get, we'll have chemo sessions every 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then after that 3 months, it will go weekly.
Correct.
So in a nutshell, they're hitting her with the atom bomb in the first 3 months, and then they're hitting her with bullets in the back 3 months. Mm-hmm. And at the end of all that, then there's another step, unfortunately.
So after that, as I think it's like a 3-week break because my body has to recover from all the chemo. And then I go into surgery. And because I found out that I do have the BRCA2 gene, which is the BRCA2 gene. And
what that means is that they blood test her, they do a genetic blood test and see if this is a hereditary thing or a genetic thing. Mm-hmm. And those results were positive.
Yes. And I honestly didn't know how to feel about it because I was really upset because I was worried about the kids. Then I'm worried about everyone else in my family, knowing that it's hereditary. But at the same time, it was kind of nice to know that I didn't do anything wrong. Yep. Like this was just hanging out, waiting to show face.
Let me just say this. You want to create perspective around that statement? Krystal, from the second she was conceived, had an 87% chance of getting this.
Yeah. So
analyzing how it showed up is a waste of energy.
Yeah. So there was comfort in it. I mean, I was a little upset, but then there's also comfort in knowing that I didn't do anything wrong. Yeah. But so because I have that gene, I do have to do a double mastectomy, and then I'll have to go through that process, which we'll have another episode with my friend that just went through it, and she's about to have her final surgery. So that'll be good to hear like that end of it, so I can have something to look forward to. Yeah. And then also with my gene, it's you're at risk for I think it's 40% for ovarian cancer and pancreatic cancer. So with that being said, I'm going to be monitored my whole life. And once I'm done with the chemo step, I'll have my augmentation step. And then further down the road, I'll have my ovarian step. And so this has sort of become a lifelong journey instead of just a short-term journey, Yeah,
I think that the brunt part of the journey is for a year. Mm-hmm. And then it's maintenance.
Yeah.
And here's the other shitty thing. We're just getting older.
I know.
And here's what's starting to happen is we are becoming the statistics we've heard about
I know.
Our whole life. So it's not they're like, I went to when I got my blood work back, they said I had high cholesterol. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Are you like 80?
Right. I eat well. I fucking run a mile every single day. I work out every day. You just start. So that sounds real daunting in what you just described, but
it's just kind
the
of
older
what it
you
is.
get, the more you become the statistic instead of hearing about the statistic.
Yeah. At least I have a life to have and go through all that. If that's all I have to do, then that's okay.
Because the main hurdle is that.
Yeah.
And we've overcome that.
Right.
So we will see the end of this. And I think something for me was when we started that first round, that was an exciting day for me. Because
there's a finish line.
if you're starting, then there's a finish line. And the fact that we were able to start was huge. So something else that Krystal and I did, because we're a very powerful, decisive couple, when this happened, we said to ourselves, our goal is to take whatever they tell us the timeline should be and divide that by 2. So if they say it takes a week, we're going to do it in 2.5 days.
Yeah.
And then we wanted to know every single thing that we could know surrounding this thing within 3 weeks and starting the healing process within a month from when we found out. I think we made we did. We made that choice and set that goal when we were in the parking lot, getting the CDs, getting ready to overnight them to California on that interesting place on Charleston. Because everybody told us that it would take weeks, and we were like, fuck that.
Yeah.
And we rolled up to these places, and they were trying to tell us we can't get you the CDs within a certain amount of time. And we were like, you're getting me the fucking CDs,
Yeah.
And they did.
Yeah.
And we accomplished those goals, was my point.
Yeah, because we went in on the 10th, and he said, I think it's best you do chemo first, not surgery first. You'll be able to see it actually work. You'll see the tumor get smaller, which it did with 1 round. And he said, so we'll start you on chemo in 3 weeks. And I was like, what the I'm not waiting 3 more weeks.
Right.
I'm not waiting 3 more weeks.
Right.
He's like,
fine.
Okay, fine.
But he wouldn't have responded unless you said something.
Right. And he said, okay, well, you have 7 appointments that you have to get done in the next 8 days if you want to start on the 18th, which it was like 10 days.
That includes
it was 8
weekends.
days. Yeah. And I was like, I'll get it done.
And you got it done.
Yeah.
And you started.
Yeah.
She got her port put in the day before chemo. Mm-hmm. That's how.
That was the worst part.
Yeah. So.
Not to scare anybody.
Congratulations, honey. Great job.
Thanks.
I think you are an example of what somebody would want it to look like to go through this process. I'm proud to be your husband.
Thanks,
I'm proud of you. And, everybody says they're praying for us, so just keep on doing that.
Yeah.
Keep sending us good energy.
I'll take all the vibes, all the prayers.
That's right.
And
you'll keep killing it.
Yeah.
I love you.
Love you.
Mwah. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today. Thank you so much for listening.
If you enjoyed the show, please rate, subscribe, and share our podcast. You can also connect with us on social media or at galindogrouprealestate.com.
Until next time, thanks again for listening.